Hello there, and welcome to Venture Deep. Today, I will be speaking about deep-sea mythical creatures that exist in the endless darkness beneath the ocean waves, where sunlight cannot reach and silence dominates the abyss. Lies a realm that has fueled human imagination for centuries, a place where myths and legends were born, not from fantasy alone, but from fleeting glimpses of real beings that seemed too strange for reality. Creatures that inspired sailors' tales, ancient folklore, and even modern stories of monsters lurking below. Yet, as science progressed and deep-sea exploration began to unlock the secrets of the abyss, humanity discovered something far more astonishing than legends. For many of the mythical beings, once dismissed as figments of imagination, were revealed to have a foundation in truth. The Kraken, with its massive, grasping arms, turned out to echo the existence of giant squids that thrive in the black waters. Colossal forms capable of battling whales in silent duels far beneath the surface. While mermaid sightings may have been sparked by encounters with manatees and dugongs, their distant, eerie silhouettes mistaken for half-human forms by weary sailors. And then there are the glowing creatures that haunt the ocean trenches, bioluminescent beings that create ghostly lights resembling will-o'-the-wisps of old legends, swirling like spirits in the dark waters, captivating those who behold them. The deep sea is in truth more mythical than myth itself, for it holds life forms that bend the rules of nature, such as anglerfish with lantern-like lures that shine in the eternal night, resembling monstrous faces from folklore, or vampire squids with cloaks of skin and glowing eyes that eerily mirror the fears of demons from human stories. Every culture across the globe has tales of sea serpents, dragons, leviathans, and shadowy shapes twisting beneath the waves. Yet, modern exploration revealed ill-like fish and serpent-bodied creatures, so long and sinuous that they match descriptions passed down for centuries. It is as though the ocean itself preserves myths in living forms, and every descent into its depths uncovers fragments of stories that our ancestors whispered by firelight. The truth is not that myths invented monsters, but rather that the ocean gave birth to realities so extraordinary that the human mind had no choice but to turn them into myth. Here in this journey, we will explore the deep sea not as a place of fiction, but as a living library of mythical beings that exist, beings that breathe, hunt, and survive in conditions beyond human endurance, beings that inspired awe and terror in those who first encountered them. For the line between myth and reality is thinnest where the ocean deep begins. And as you listen, drifting into rest, you will discover that the sea is not empty, but full of mysteries that once seemed impossible, yet live and move just beyond the horizon of human sight. This documentary will take you through the shadows and into the abyss, where every ripple tells a story, every shape conceals an ancient legend, and every flash of light is a reminder that the mythical world is not gone. It is alive in the silent kingdom beneath the waves. And the further we descend into the uncharted waters, the clearer it becomes that our planet is shared with forms of life so extraordinary that they almost blur the line between natural and supernatural. Jellyfish that glow like floating lanterns drifting endlessly in the void could have easily inspired stories of wandering souls. Enormous oarfish that rise toward the surface during storms with shimmering scales may have been the serpents of legend, and colossal crabs, strange worms, and ghostly cephalopods hiding in trenches deeper than mountains are tall, bring substance to nightmares once told by mariners. The abyss is not an empty void, but a living canvas of shapes, lights, and movements that mirror the monsters, spirits, and gods of folklore. When we look closely, the boundaries of myth unravel, revealing that humans did not imagine creatures so bizarre, but rather attempted to explain what their eyes only briefly glimpsed before fear or darkness consumed the vision. Myths became the language of survival, cautionary tales wrapped around truths too vast to comprehend. And now, as science grants us the ability to peer further, to send machines and cameras into the crushing depths, we are not debunking these stories, but rediscovering them with new names. The giant squid is no longer a sailor's hallucination, but a measurable being with eyes the size of dinner plates. The vampire squid is no longer a demon of the dark, but a fragile yet resilient inhabitant of the abyss. The anglerfish is not a monster from legend, but a predator so alien that even knowing it is real makes it no less terrifying. And bioluminescent creatures that light up the sea like constellations remind us that the ocean is not devoid of stars. It carries its own galaxy in its depths. Every shimmer in the black water is a reminder that what we call myth may in fact be memory. The sea has always been the keeper of truths too strange for the surface world. And as you drift deeper into this story, as your breath slows and your body rests, imagine the abyss not as a void, but as a dreamlike kingdom, where the mythical is not imagined, where every legend is tethered to flesh, scale, or glow, and where the unknown waits patiently for us to rediscover it. For tonight, as you listen, you will understand that the ocean itself is the greatest storyteller, one that hides its truths in silence and reveals only enough to let myths take root. A storyteller that whispers of creatures more mysterious than dragons, more enduring than gods, and more real than our imagination ever dared to believe. The abyss of legends, the deep ocean, has always been a place of mystery, where myths and truths collide, and where sailors' imaginations created stories that lasted centuries through whispers of monsters in the dark. Many of these tales were born from real sightings of strange creatures that few understood and fewer dared to describe in detail beyond their fearful memories. The abyss is not empty water, but a place where ancient stories were given flesh and bone, as if nature itself wanted to write its own legends. Even today, when science explores the depths, the creatures discovered seem closer to fantasy than reality, and they remind us of old tales. Sailors once spoke of giant arms rising from the waves, pulling ships down into a grave of salt and silence that echoed across cultures. Today, the giant squid is proof that legends often hold truth in their shadows, with colossal bodies lurking, unseen in the abyss. The abyss is full of forms that seem impossible, yet thrive effortlessly in an environment humans could never survive. Each shadow that moves in the dark reminds us of the myths we thought were gone, but live beneath the surface, waiting to be seen. The ocean does not create myths for humans, but instead, humans create myths from what little they can see of the ocean. The abyss is the bridge between myth and truth, holding secrets more ancient than human memory itself. Beneath the endless black water, the shapes of life twist and writhe beyond the limits of imagination and comprehension. Even now, explorers with advanced machines are humbled by the strangeness they record in the deepest trenches. The ocean is a kingdom where myths are born not from fantasy, but from survival and adaptation in crushing darkness. The abyss is not a silent grave, but a realm alive, with voices written in glowing light and alien motion. It is a living world of shadows and sparks, where every form seems otherworldly, yet each one is real. For those who dare to imagine, the sea is not merely water, but a cathedral of myths in motion. In its depths, there are no boundaries between history and dream, only endless shapes weaving new legends. When we listen to the ocean's silence, we are listening to stories older than the earth itself, and each myth passed from generation to generation carries within it a fragment of the truth, a fragment that still swims today unseen but alive in the timeless kingdom of the abyss, the Kraken's shadow. For centuries, sailors spoke in hushed voices of a monstrous being with tentacles so vast they could drag entire ships beneath the waves, a creature born of fear and awe that haunted the imaginations of those who braved the open seas. The Kraken became the symbol of the unknown lurking below, and though dismissed as fantasy for generations, the truth waiting beneath the surface was stranger than fiction. The giant squid, with its enormous eyes and twisting arms, proved that such legends were not merely the inventions of tired minds, but reflections of a real predator living in the shadows. Battles between whales and these squids have been witnessed, scars upon leviathans of the sea testifying to their struggle. And still these creatures remain elusive, rarely seen alive by human eyes. They lurk in darkness where light has no reach, masters of a domain few can comprehend. To encounter one would be to see a legend breathing, to face the embodiment of the Kraken's myth in the flesh. Each time one is glimpsed, we are reminded that the ocean does not bow to human imagination. Instead, it surpasses it, giving shape to monsters of scale and silence. And in doing so, it reveals that myths are not lies, but warnings carved into our memory. Tales meant to remind us of the power and majesty of the abyss itself. Mermaids beneath the surface, the legends of half-human, half-fish beings have been told in every culture, from sirens luring sailors with song to mermaids blessing or cursing voyages. And while many believed these stories were dreams or deceptions, the truth again rests in the ocean's embrace. Manatees and dugongs gliding through the water may have inspired the visions of tired sailors, whose minds blurred reality into myth. Yet even beyond mistaken identity, the sea offers creatures that echo human forms, with haunting silhouettes that bend and twist in the dim light. Strange fish with luminous beauty and humanoid features have been recorded, their motions smooth and otherworldly, appearing like spirits swimming just beyond reach. Such sights feed the stories that never die, reminding us that mermaids are more than illusions. They are reflections of our longing for connection with the sea. The myth endures because the ocean still presents forms that feel familiar yet alien, beautiful yet unsettling, reminding us that the line between human imagination and marine life is thinner than we think. And perhaps deep within the abyss exist beings yet unknown that could embody the legends of mermaids more directly. Unseen, unheard, waiting in the currents of a kingdom untouched by human hands. The serpent of the depth sea. Serpents haunt stories from ancient Nordic sagas to Asian folklore, twisting bodies as long as ships coiling beneath the waves and rising with storms, their presence feared by all who sailed into uncharted waters. Yet modern discovery revealed the oarfish, a serpentine giant stretching over 30 feet, with shimmering scales and undulating movement, rising toward the surface during disturbances, perhaps inspiring those old tales. When seen through the fog and fear of a sailor's eye, it could only be described as a dragon of the sea, its glittering silver body reflecting moonlight like scales of myth. Even eels that grow to monstrous lengths contribute to this legend, their writhing bodies slipping through the dark like living shadows, proof that the serpent of the depths is more than a symbol. It is a reality expressed in many forms across the oceans, and still unexplored trenches may harbor even greater mysteries. Serpentine creatures yet to be documented, continuing the living legacy of sea serpent myths, keeping alive the fear and wonder of the endless deep, where truth and myth merge into a single timeless presence. Ghosts of the abyssal gens of spirits and phantoms wandering the sea have been told across cultures. Whispers of glowing apparitions haunting the waters and guiding or dooming those who followed their lights. Such tales were not mere inventions, but echoes of bioluminescent life, deep-sea jellyfish, comb jellies, and strange plankton that shimmer and pulse with spectral glow, appearing like wandering souls in the darkness, their beauty mesmerizing, yet haunting. The ocean is alive with lights that mimic stars and spirits, creating illusions that fit perfectly with human myths. The will-o'-the-wisps of land have their counterparts in the sea, leading voyagers astray with their flickering presence. To watch them is to believe in phantoms swimming in silence, drifting forever in cold black waters, their fragile bodies cloaked in unearthly light. They are proof that myths of ghostly beings are tied to real life, the abyss offering us its spectral hosts, a reminder that the sea is filled not with emptiness, but with living lights that tell stories older than any words. And as long as the depths glow, the legends of ocean ghosts will never fade. Monsters with lantern stories of demons carrying lights in the dark seas, frightened sailors. Tales of creatures with glowing eyes and monstrous teeth pulling victims into shadow. Today we know such legends align with the anglerfish, a predator with a lure that shines in the abyss, drawing prey close before revealing its nightmarish jaws. Its face distorted and terrifying, yet perfect for survival. This demon of the deep exists not in fantasy, but in reality, a reminder that nature creates forms more frightening than our imagination. The anglerfish embodies the nightmare of being hunted by something unseen in the dark, until it reveals itself with a flicker of light. Many varieties exist, each stranger than the last, with glowing beacons hanging like lanterns in the eternal night, proving that myths of evil spirits with lamps may have been born from glimpses of these alien predators. The abyss is their domain, and in it they are kings, demons, not from legend but from evolution itself, yet no less terrifying to those who encountered them. Myths told the story of monsters with lanterns. The deep sea delivered the truth. The vampire of the sea cultures spoke of blood-drinking demons and shadowy creatures lurking in darkness. And in the abyss, we find their mirror, the vampire squid, a small but haunting being with glowing eyes, a cloak-like webbing stretching between its arms and motions that resemble a phantom spreading wings. Its name, fitting the legend it echoes, though it does not drink blood. Its presence is eerie enough to inspire fear. It drifts silently in waters where no light dares to enter, a creature perfectly adapted to the void, yet in form and movement so strange it seems born from nightmare. Sailors of old who glimpsed such a shape could only compare it to demons, giving rise to myths of vampiric beings of the ocean. The vampire squid is proof that nature creates forms that fulfill our oldest fears, cloaked, glowing, and ghostly, drifting through eternal night, as if keeping alive the stories of monsters from human memory. It reminds us that in the sea, even the smallest creature can become the foundation of the darkest legends. Dragons of the ocean across cultures, dragons, were said to rise from the waters, breathing storms, commanding waves, and embodying the fury of the sea. Myths of leviathans and ocean dragons persist because the sea is home to creatures worthy of such legends. Enormous whales that breach with thunderous force, oarfish that ripple like serpentine gods, and colossal squids that battle in silence, each echoing the image of dragons in different ways. The ocean has always been the forge of dragons, shaping beings too large and too strange for simple description. When lightning struck waves and massive shapes rolled beneath them, sailors told of dragons. When unknown forces pulled ships apart, they whispered of leviathans. And when monstrous silhouettes emerged in the distance, they became proof of gods. In the sea, today we understand the science of these creatures. Yet their mythic essence remains. They are the dragons of the deep, living reminders that stories of sea beasts were never lies, but interpretations of truths that still swim in our world. The eternal lights legends of cities beneath the sea, filled with glowing towers, may come from visions of bioluminescent ecosystems that paint the abyss with radiant color, entire landscapes of coral and life glowing in unison like alien kingdoms. For those who dared to look, these visions seemed like proof of mythical lands, and even today the sight is breathtaking to watch. The ocean floor shimmer with ghostly blue or radiant green is too. Believe in the stories of Atlantis and other submerged wonders. The abyss contains its own cities of light, not made by human hands, but by life itself, glowing in eternal night. And for those who see them, they appear too magical to be real, yet they are alive and thriving, reminding us that myths of underwater realms may have been inspired not by fantasy, but by rare glimpses of this hidden beauty. The eternal lights of the deep are nature's own myths, real, living, and brighter than imagination. The ocean of myths, the sea, has always been the greatest storyteller, weaving its creatures into the fabric of human imagination. Every legend of monsters, gods, or spirits tied to a real being that inspired it. The ocean gave us mermaids, serpents, dragons, krakens, ghosts, and demons, all reflections of creatures that exist. Myths are the way humans tried to explain what they could not understand, and the sea is the keeper of these truths, hiding them in darkness until revealed again as we explore deeper. The boundary between story and reality collapses. The myths we thought were fantasies prove themselves alive, swimming, glowing, and hunting in silence. The ocean of myths is a living archive, a reminder that human imagination is never greater than nature's reality. For what we once feared as legend, we now know as life, and what we cannot yet explain may one day rise from the depths to reveal itself, completing myths with truth, and ensuring that the sea will forever remain the wellspring of wonder and mystery for humankind. Beasts of forgotten depths. In every corner of the world, sailors carried stories of unseen beasts hiding beneath the waves, creatures that shattered the surface without warning before vanishing back into the void. They were described as giants, with scales sharp as blades, eyes glowing like fire, and movements faster than storms. But today, we know that many of these visions may have been colossal fish, whales, and squids rising suddenly from the abyss, their appearances magnified by fear and imagination. Deep-sea sharks with massive jaws, elusive rays gliding like shadows, and armored fish that glitter like steel were all fuel for legends that grew larger each time they were told. When the sea offered even a glimpse of such forms, the human mind could only turn them into monsters. The truth is that forgotten depths have always hidden creatures too unusual to classify easily, their existence transforming into tales of beasts that haunted sailors' dreams. Today, science shows that even the strangest myths may rest on encounters with real beings, misunderstood yet alive. Proof that beasts of forgotten depths were never fully imaginary, but rooted in glimpses of reality that still lurk beneath the ocean's veil. The guardians of the trench legends spoke of guardians watching over the deepest trenches of the sea, mighty creatures that punished those who dared to trespass into their sacred waters. Some cultures believed they were gods, others saw them as demons, but all agreed that they lived in the silence where pressure crushed even stone. Modern discovery reveals that life exists even in these impossible depths. Strange amphipods, giant isopods, and abyssal fish roam freely, their appearance terrifying and alien, with armored shells and glowing lures, as if built to embody fear itself. To early sailors, such visions could only be explained as guardians, their monstrous designs beyond earthly logic, their survival proof of powers humans could not comprehend, each one a sentinel of the deep, enforcing the barrier between the surface world and the abyss. Myths of guardians endure because the creatures of the trench are truly unlike anything else. Their presence still humbles explorers who descend, reminding us that the deepest parts of the ocean belong not to mankind, but to beings that thrive where no human can. The Leviathans. Echo the Leviathan is one of the most enduring myths of the sea, a monstrous being so large it could crush ships with ease and swallow storms into its maw. Described in sacred texts and seafarers' journals alike, this creature became the symbol of oceanic terror. Yet in the natural world, whales, the true giants of the ocean, may have been the echo of this myth, their size unimaginable to early humans, their breaches like mountains rising from the water, and their voices deep and resonant like thunder. Though gentle by nature, their overwhelming scale became the foundation of Leviathan legends, and encounters with distressed or aggressive whales may have deepened these fears. The Leviathan's echo remains alive today, not as a myth to dismiss, but as a reminder of the awe such creatures inspire, and the truth that the ocean has always housed giants worthy of gods, creatures whose very existence shakes the line between legend and reality, ensuring that the Leviathan never truly vanishes from human thought. Spirits of sunken ship stories of sunken ships haunted by spectral forms and ghostly creatures have existed for centuries. Sailors believed the wrecks themselves became homes to spirits that lured the living to join them. Glowing lights, eerie shadows, and strange noises in the depths all contributed to the myth. But modern knowledge shows that shipwrecks are in fact transformed into living ecosystems with fish, eels, and glowing organisms inhabiting them. Their movements in the dark waters easily mistaken for phantoms by those who saw them. Barnacles covering bones of ships like white ghosts, jellyfish drifting through the wrecks like souls wandering the corridors of the drowned. The legend of haunted wrecks persists because these sites remain eerily lifelike, turning tragedy into myth. And while the spirits may be imagined, the life that thrives in wrecks ensures that the story of ghostly presences continues, proving again that the sea itself feeds myths with living inspiration. The watchers in the dark tales of watchers lurking beneath ships, staring with massive eyes from the darkness, haunted generations of sailors, their unseen gaze creating unease even in calm waters. Today, scientists have discovered creatures with eyes so enormous they seem designed to watch the world above. Giant squids and deep-sea fish rely on massive eyes to capture the faintest light in total darkness. And when glimpsed by sailors, these glowing orbs must have seemed like the stares of mythical beings. The watchers of the deep are real, and their unnerving gaze has been a source of stories across cultures. Some claiming they were gods watching the unworthy, others believing they were monsters preparing to strike. But the truth is more fascinating. They are survivors, adapted to a world of endless night, proof that what seems terrifying may only be the brilliance of evolution. Yet the myth of watchers remains, because their eyes are unforgettable, glowing reminders that in the abyss, nothing escapes notice. The call of the sirens. Every culture has some tale of sirens or sea maidens whose voices lured sailors into danger. Songs drifting across waves that promised beauty but delivered death. While often told as pure myth, the reality may be hidden in the strange sounds of the sea itself. Whales produce haunting calls that echo across miles of water, eerie and melodic, easily mistaken for voices. Other creatures create vibrations and songs unknown to human ears, and in the stillness of night, these sounds could stir the imagination of lonely sailors, hearing voices where none existed. The call of the sirens was perhaps the ocean itself, singing through its creatures, misunderstood but powerful, reminding humans of their vulnerability. The myth remains because the sea does sing. It sounds alien and emotional, touching the heart in ways both beautiful and terrifying. The sirens may not exist as women of the waves, but their voices are real, hidden in the language of the ocean's true inhabitants. The phantom whale myths spoke of a great whale that appeared from nowhere and vanished without a trace. A ghostly leviathan that sank ships with its sheer presence. Sailors claimed to see its massive backstretch for miles, only to disappear into mist. Such tales may have been inspired by rare sightings of massive whales surfacing unexpectedly, or by strange carcasses washed ashore that defied recognition. The phantom whale became a legend, not because it was unreal, but because it was rarely seen, and its size was beyond comprehension. Today's science recognizes species of whales that remain elusive and mysterious, some rarely observed, even with modern technology. Each encounter renewing the idea of a phantom that haunts the seas. Myths of the phantom whale endure because the ocean still holds giants we do not fully know, and perhaps one day a species yet undiscovered will rise, proving the myth true in ways we could never have imagined. The fiery serpent across cultures, stories of fiery serpents rising from the water in flashes of light and flame terrified communities near the sea. Such creatures seemed impossible until modern discovery revealed that deep-sea organisms produce displays of bioluminescence so dramatic they resemble fire in the darkness. Great plumes of glowing plankton disturbed by waves or the motion of ships can appear like flames spreading across the surface. Long-bodied creatures such as siphonophores twist through the water like living trails of fire, their glow hypnotic and dangerous to those who saw such visions centuries ago. The fiery serpent was a natural explanation, a myth born from wonder and fear. Yet the truth remains no less magical. Today, the fiery serpent still swims, not as a monster of flame, but as a constellation of life moving through the ocean. A reminder that fire can exist even in the coldest and darkest waters on Earth. Children of the abyss, many legends speak of smaller beings dwelling in the deep, tricksters, helpers, or mischievous spirits that lived far from human sight. And though dismissed as fable, science has found a myriad of tiny organisms, from glowing plankton to microscopic predators, that fill the abyss with light and life. Their presence often unnoticed, yet essential. When disturbed, they create glowing trails, appearing like dancing spirits in the water, their shapes shifting like figures from dreams. These children of the abyss are the truth behind stories of ocean sprites, invisible to most but ever present, their dance creating myths that survive in every culture. Even today, divers and explorers describe them as magical, reminding us that myths are not always born from terror but from beauty, and that the smallest of beings can carry the weight of the oldest legends, ensuring that the ocean's mysteries remain alive in every drop. The endless mystery, the ocean has always been a place where myths never die, each wave carrying echoes of stories told for generations, each storm feeding the belief in powers beyond human control. Myths of creatures, great and small, terrifying and beautiful, have shaped our understanding of the sea. Yet modern exploration has only proven that the ocean is more mysterious than myth itself, with new species discovered every year, each one stranger than the last. The endless mystery ensures that myths will never fade. For every truth we uncover, another question rises, another shadow stirs, another sound echoes from the abyss, and in those unknowns, legends are born again. The sea is eternal, not only in size, but in imagination, forever the cradle of stories, forever the home of beings that defy human comprehension. The endless mystery ensures that myths of the deep are not relics of the past, but living truths still unfolding in the silent world beneath the waves. The ocean, Titans. Since the dawn of time, people have spoken of titans beneath the waves, massive creatures that moved mountains of water with a single shift of their colossal bodies. These legends were not empty inventions, but reflections of encounters with true giants of the sea. From blue whales that stretch longer than buses to colossal squids that wrestle in silence with predators equally vast, their size alone inspires fear and awe. To witness one even briefly would have been enough to create stories of titans whose movements could decide the fate of ships. Modern science shows us these titans are real, breathing reminders that the ocean creates life on a scale unimaginable. Myths of ocean titans endure because the truth remains alive today, with every breach and every shadow beneath the waves, proving that the legends are never far from reality. The titans of the deep still swim, their presence eternal, and they are the living pillars of the myths that shaped our understanding of the sea's unfathomable power. The Whispering Currents legends told of voices heard in the winds across the sea, whispers that seemed to rise from the water itself, calling to sailors with tones both beautiful and chilling. For centuries, people feared these sounds, believing them to be spirits of the ocean. Yet the truth lies in the strange and haunting noises created by whales, dolphins, and even shifting currents that echo like voices. To tired sailors, the whispers became sirens. To frightened crews, they became omens. But in reality, they were the language of the ocean carried across vast distances. Today, scientists record these songs and study their purpose. Yet, even with explanation, the whispers feel otherworldly. Myths of whispering currents remind us that the sea itself speaks in a voice that is not human but reaches the human soul, ensuring that the legend of voices on the waves will never vanish. For the whispers are real, and they will always haunt the silence of the ocean night. The drowned gods across cultures, the ocean was seen as the home of gods, mighty beings who ruled storms and tides, demanding offerings and worship from those who dared to cross their waters. Myths of drowned gods grew from the sea's unforgiving power, swallowing ships and entire fleets with a fury that felt divine. Yet the truth behind these stories may be found in the sheer scale of the ocean and the strange beings glimpsed within it. Colossal creatures rising unexpectedly, storms revealing monstrous silhouettes, and waves uncovering shadows too vast to comprehend. To ancient eyes, these were gods without question, their domain endless, their wrath merciless. Even now, the ocean humbles humanity with disasters and creatures that feel larger than life. Myths of drowned gods persist because the sea remains untamable, a force that gives life and takes it. And though science strips away illusion, the feeling of divinity in the abyss endures, reminding us that the gods of the deep still live in its unyielding mystery. The shapeshifters of the sea legends of shapeshifters told of creatures that could become human or animal, changing forms to trick and confuse, and the ocean itself carries beings that match these myths. Octopuses and cuttlefish with their astonishing camouflage shift color, shape, and texture at will, vanishing into rocks or becoming predators in disguise. To sailors who saw their transformations, they could only be explained as magic. Myths of shapeshifters became common across coasts, each culture imagining beings who could become anything. Modern science confirms the skill of these animals is unmatched, their changes instant and precise, making them masters of deception. The shapeshifters of the sea are real, and their powers are greater than myth described. For they are not illusions, but survival itself, and their beauty and strangeness ensure that the legend of shapeshifters will never fade. For every glimpse of their transformation is proof that magic still exists in the ocean depths. The abyssal hunters myths often told of hunters that stalked the darkness beneath the waves, unseen predators that struck without warning and disappeared just as fast. Their legend grew from fear of the unknown, yet today explorers have found countless hunters in the abyss. From fantooth fish with jaws too large for their bodies to gulper eels with throats that stretch wider than themselves. They are monsters by every human measure, yet perfectly adapted for survival. To sailors, these creatures were predators from nightmares, beings that could only be imagined as myth, but they are real, and they thrive where no human could last. Their teeth sharp, their eyes glowing, their bodies built for ambush in eternal night. The abyssal hunters prove that the stories of monsters were not fantasies, but early encounters with true predators of the sea. And as long as they prowl the depths, the myths of hunters in the dark will remain alive in every tale of the oceans. Shadowed World. The Enchanted Lights legends told of enchanted lights dancing beneath the water, strange flickers that lured sailors to danger or guided them to fortune. These lights were said to belong to spirits or sea witches, yet the truth lies in bioluminescence, the glowing miracle of life that paints the sea with starlight, plankton. That glow, when disturbed, creatures that pulse like lanterns, and vast colonies that create living rivers of light. To those who saw them, the sight was beyond comprehension. Magical and terrifying myths of enchanted lights are rooted in this real wonder. And even today, the glow of the ocean feels supernatural, enchanting all who behold it. The deep sea is filled with lights that never die, flickering in endless patterns. And while science names the process, the magic remains, proving that the myths of enchanted lights were never false, but glimpses of a living reality more beautiful than fantasy itself. The ocean. Demons' cultures around the world warned of demons rising from the sea, monstrous beings that punished arrogance and dragged the unwary to their doom. Their images were drawn with fangs, horns, and fire. Yet today, the ocean reveals creatures equally terrifying. Anglerfish with glowing lures and gaping teeth, gulper eels with jaws unhinged like nightmares, and giant isopods with armored shells crawling across the abyssal floor. To early humans, these beings were demons without question, their strangeness too great to accept as natural myths of ocean demons endure, because even with science, the fear they inspire remains. Their alien appearance reminding us that nature itself can create forms far scarier than our imagination. And in the deep sea, where light does not reach, demons still thrive, not in myth, but in flesh, keeping alive the legends of darkness and punishment in every shadow that moves across the ocean floor. The forgotten Leviathan's legends tell of Leviathans that once ruled the oceans, titanic creatures whose presence shaped tides and storms, beings so vast they defied belief. And while many considered them fables, fossils and remains revealed that the ocean has indeed housed monsters greater than any we know today, megalodons that dwarfed modern sharks, reptiles of prehistoric seas that hunted with merciless strength. Their memory carried into human culture as myths of leviathans. Today, their bones remind us that the ocean is a place where giants rise and fall. And while they may be gone, their legends endure, for even now, colossal creatures roam the seas. Their size and mystery ensuring that the myth of leviathans is never far from reality. The forgotten leviathans live on in both history and myth, shadows of the past, proving that the stories of titans in the ocean were always grounded in truth. The living shadows, many legends spoke of shadows that followed ships, vast dark shapes beneath the water, never rising, never attacking, simply watching. And these living shadows terrified sailors who felt hunted by the unseen. Today, we know that whales, sharks, and giant rays often swim beneath vessels, their silhouettes massive and silent, casting shadows that inspire dread. In poor light, these figures could appear endless, stretching into the depths like monsters. Myths of living shadows persist because the experience is still unsettling. The feeling of being followed by something vast and silent remains haunting. The ocean is filled with watchers that glide unseen, their presence both real and mythic, and even if science names them, the image of a living shadow beneath a fragile wooden ship remains enough to create a legend, one that still echoes in the tales of sailors who feared what followed them unseen. The endless abyss, the heart of all ocean myths, lies the abyss itself, the unfathomable darkness that swallows light and time. It has been imagined as the home of gods, monsters, and spirits, a place where the rules of the surface no longer apply. And though modern science explores it with machines and cameras, the abyss remains largely a mystery. What we have seen is stranger than myth, creatures glowing with impossible colors, predators with jaws beyond reason, and beings that live without sunlight or warmth. Myths of the abyss endure because the unknown still dominates it, and humans fear what they cannot see. The abyss is endless, and with every discovery, new legends are born, ensuring that even in an age of science, the ocean will never be stripped of its mystery. It will always remain a place of imagination and fear, where myths do not die but thrive, and where the greatest stories of the sea will always be written. The watchers of the depths, since the beginning of seafaring, sailors spoke of enormous watchers beneath their fragile ships, immense beings that glided silently through the darkness, never fully surfacing. Their presence felt more than seen, their outlines casting immense shadows that seemed alive. And in every culture, the idea of deep watchers became legend. They were believed to be guardians, demons, or forgotten gods, watching humanity trespass on their endless territory. But the truth lies in the reality of whales, sharks, and giant rays, creatures that move silently and remain unseen in the deep. To early humans, their sheer size was incomprehensible, and so myths grew that these watchers were more than flesh. They were spirits of the abyss, eternal eyes in the water. And even now, when ships are followed by massive shadows, the same fear rises. Modern science explains them, but cannot erase the primal terror. Because the watchers of the depths remain real, living reminders that the ocean is not empty. It is filled with vast intelligences beyond our vision. And the stories of watchers persist because the truth is too immense to ignore, for the sea will always watch us, and its watchers will never be bound by human understanding. Their forms endless, their mystery eternal, their silence louder than any myth, making them both reality and legend. The eternal sirens' myths of sirens filled the minds of sailors with both fear and longing. Women of the sea whose songs could enchant the strongest hearts, pulling men toward the rocks where death awaited, and though long thought to be fantasies, their origins come from real encounters with the haunting sounds of the sea, whales singing across vast distances, dolphins whistling, and seals appearing on rocks that looked human from afar. Lonely men at sea heard these voices and saw shapes, and from these glimpses arose the myths of sirens, seductive and dangerous. Even now, their legend endures, because the truth is that the ocean does sing, its voices are real, and they carry emotion across miles of darkness, blending beauty with danger. And when night falls over the waves, the cries of animals can easily be mistaken for supernatural calls. Today, science has mapped these sounds, yet the mystery remains. For to the human soul, they feel enchanted, and the myth of sirens survives because their reality is still with us. In every whisper of the sea, in every haunting melody that drifts through the fog, reminding us that the line between myth and truth is thin, and that sirens, whether imagined or not, will always exist as long as the sea sings its eternal song. The abyssal colossus, every culture spoke of beings so immense that the ocean itself bent around them, creatures that could sink ships by rising beneath them, or vanish entire fleets in storms of their making. And though many thought these tales exaggerated, they came from glimpses of reality, from whales breaching the surface in awe-inspiring displays, to colossal squids that stretched longer than boats, their tentacles thrashing like living storms. The abyssal colossus was more than myth. It was an interpretation of true giants that live unseen. The ocean remains a place where scale itself is monstrous, where a creature can vanish into darkness, even when larger than any land beast. And the myths endure because the colossi are still here, swimming in silence, their bulk hidden beneath miles of waves. The stories of leviathans were not fantasy, but memory, carried across generations of sailors who had glimpsed more than they could explain. Today, even with cameras and submarines, the colossi remain rare, living legends in a modern world, and they prove that humanity never invented its myths from nothing. It only tried to put into words the endless reality of life in the deep, where the abyss still hides monsters too vast to name, ensuring that the colossus will forever live in both truth and story. The phantom mariner stories told of phantom sailors, crews of the drowned that returned in spectral form, guiding ships to ruin or sailing ghostly vessels across the horizon. And while myths made them into spirits, their truth is found in the strange illusions of the sea, fogs that shape shadows into men, shipwrecks that drift as if crewed, and sea creatures like dolphins and seals moving in formations that mimic humans. To sailors with tired eyes, the illusions became reality, and legends of phantom mariners grew. But the ocean does hold echoes of the dead. Wrecks litter the seabed, carrying the memory of those lost. And in storms, ships can vanish without trace, feeding the belief in cursed crews. Today, scientists explain the illusions, but the haunting feeling remains. Because the ocean does create phantoms, not of imagination alone, but of truth. Its mists, its wrecks, and its silence breathe life into the myth, and the phantom mariners continue to sail, whether in vision or memory, reminding us that the sea never forgets. It holds everything that falls into it, and in that endless memory, the dead do sail forever, keeping their myth alive through every wave that whispers their name. The abyssal serpents, for centuries tales spread of serpents stretching longer than ships, winding beneath the water and rising to terrify those who dared to sail across unknown seas. Drawings of sea serpents filled maps, warnings to sailors of places where monsters ruled. And though dismissed as fantasy by many, there is truth within these myths. For oarfish, capable of growing longer than a bus, rise from the abyss with shimmering silver scales, appearing exactly as serpents described in legend. Their movements sinuous, their size incomprehensible to those who first encountered them, and alongside them other ill-like predators haunt the deep, their teeth and bodies terrifyingly alien. These sightings created the myth of the sea serpent, a legend alive in every ocean. Even today, when one washes ashore, the stories are reborn, proving that the myth was never false, only misunderstood. And the abyss still keeps serpents alive, enormous beings winding through darkness, too rare to see often, but too real to ever deny. Their legend endures because they are truly there, still swimming, and every sighting ensures that serpents will forever remain part of the ocean's myth and truth alike. The ocean spirits across the world believed in spirits of the sea, beings that protected or punished, carrying storms, guiding fish, or dragging the unworthy to their fate. They were worshipped, feared, and honored with offerings, their presence undeniable to those who lived by the water. And though myths shaped them as supernatural, they were inspired by the very real unpredictability of the ocean itself, its sudden storms, its currents that appear alive, and its creatures that look stranger than imagination. To ancient humans, the sea itself was conscious, a living being with moods and tempers. And though today we describe it in terms of science, the feeling remains. The sea does act with will. It creates, destroys, and humbles. And the myth of spirits lives on because the truth of the ocean's power still overwhelms us. Modern knowledge cannot erase the experience of being small against the vastness. And so spirits endure, not as fantasy, but as the embodiment of the sea's eternal mystery. The myth and the truth merging into one. The abyssal lanterns spoke of lanterns glowing in the depths, guiding ships to treasure, or luring them to doom. Strange lights that seemed alive, flickering in the dark water. And though long thought to be myths, they are revealed as bioluminescent creatures, anglerfish with glowing lures, jellyfish that pulse with radiant light, and entire colonies of plankton that set the sea ablaze like stars. To those who first saw them, it was unexplainable, a magic of the ocean that could only belong to spirits. And so myths of abyssal lanterns spread, enchanting and terrifying. Today, even with explanations, the effect remains supernatural. For to witness the sea glowing with its own light is to stand at the edge of another world, one where magic and life are the same. The myths endure because the truth is more beautiful than fantasy, and the abyss continues to shine with living lanterns, guiding, deceiving and mesmerizing, ensuring that the legends remain alive, flickering eternally beneath the waves. The ghostly Leviathan's tales of ghostly Leviathans haunted sailors' nights. Visions of massive translucent beings that rose from the deep only to fade into mist. Ships reported shadows larger than islands drifting below, only to vanish. And while many thought them spirits, today we know of giant squids, rarely seen but terrifying, their pale bodies rising unexpectedly, and whales whose immense shadows move silently below, both mistaken for phantoms, yet their rarity ensures they remain mysterious. Two sailors who lived in constant fear, the encounters became myth, and so ghostly Leviathans lived in story, their images passed down across centuries. Even today, glimpses of massive shapes in sonar or underwater cameras fuel the same legends. The ocean is still filled with beings too vast to see often, their mystery unchanged, and so the myth of ghostly Leviathans is eternal, because the reality ensures that legends can never die. The phantoms are still swimming, both real and imagined, eternal in the memory of the deep. The abyssal king stories across oceans tell of kings beneath the waves, rulers of realms unseen, seated upon thrones of coral and bone, commanding armies of fish and monsters. And though thought to be myth, the truth lies in the dominance of apex predators like giant squids, sperm whales, and sharks, their reign unquestioned, their strength unmatched. To sailors, they were kings of the abyss, unseen but felt, their power absolute, and in myth they became gods, rulers of domains humans could never conquer. Today, we still call sharks kings of the sea, their legend alive. Even in modern times, the myth of abyssal kings was not false. It was an attempt to describe power in its purest form, the natural hierarchy of the ocean. And so the kings still reign, both in story and reality. Their crowns invisible, but their authority eternal. The myths endure because the truth remains, and the abyss will always have its rulers. The unending abyss. At the heart of every legend lies the abyss itself, the unending darkness that swallows all, imagined as a prison, a kingdom, or the end of the world. And though science maps parts of it, the truth is, it remains largely unexplored, filled with more unknown than known. And what has been found is stranger than myth, creatures glowing, predators monstrous, and life forms unimaginable. The abyss does not end, it stretches beyond imagination, and so the myths of endlessness remain true, because the sea remains more mystery than certainty. Even in modern times, the unending abyss ensures that myths never die, because no matter how much we know, the greater part will always remain hidden, alive in darkness, beyond our reach, feeding imagination forever, ensuring that the legends will continue as long as the sea endures. Guardians of the abyss. Sailors often spoke of guardians beneath the sea, protectors or wardens that watched the movements of mankind and decided who would live and who would drown. These guardians were not always kind, and their forms were never described the same. Some saw serpents longer than ships, others saw giants with armor of coral and eyes of fire. Yet, what unites these myths is the belief that the ocean itself had defenders, beings tasked with preserving its balance. Today, scientists may explain such tales through encounters with giant squids, whales, and unknown silhouettes moving beneath waves. But the truth is that even now we know little of the creatures that live beyond our reach. To those who braved the waters of the past, every unknown shape was a guardian deciding their fate. Myths of guardians endure because the ocean still feels alive, still feels like it has its own protectors. And whether born of imagination or real encounters, the guardians of the abyss remain in stories and in the hearts of those who know the sea cannot be conquered. The celestial fish in many traditions. There were tales of fish that glowed like stars, swimming in patterns that mirrored the sky above. Some cultures believed these beings guided travelers, their celestial glow pointing the way home when the heavens were hidden. These myths carry truth because bioluminescent fish and plankton create glowing rivers across the sea, entire schools lighting the ocean like constellations beneath the surface. To early sailors, this was not science but a miracle, a divine connection between the heavens and the deep. And even today, when divers witness glowing creatures drifting in endless blackness, it feels as though the universe itself has bent down into the water. The myth of celestial fish survives because the ocean continues to mirror the cosmos, its lights alive and shifting like galaxies, a reminder that the sea is not just water, but a living sky, a place where stars are born again, in forms that breathe and move, and where myth and reality are one. The phantom ships of the deep legends across oceans speak of ghostly ships that rise from the mist or emerge from beneath the waves, crewless, silent, and destined to lure others to doom. These phantom vessels are believed to be the spirits of drowned sailors or cursed crews forever doomed to wander the sea. Wrecks glimpsed in odd light, or the sudden appearance of derelict ships drifting silently across currents. For those who saw them, the effect was terrifying, enough to give rise to myths of cursed fleets and phantom armies. Even today's strange radar readings and ghostly echoes beneath the ocean hint at ships where none should be. And though explanations are possible, the fear and wonder remain. Myths of phantom ships endure because the sea is vast enough to hide entire stories. And when a ship disappears without a trace, the human heart still imagines it sailing eternally beneath the waves. A phantom alive in myth and memory. The sirens are among the most enduring mythical beings. Voices that sang sailors to their deaths, their beauty and danger legendary. Yet their kin exist in the real ocean, creatures like dolphins, seals, and whales whose haunting calls echo for miles across water. To lonely crews at night, these songs were mistaken for women singing, their tone both beautiful and eerie, enough to create stories of half-human beings luring ships astray. Myths of sirens' kin remain, because even today their voices stir something ancient in us. Recordings of whales sound like symphonies from another world, their cries deep and resonant, their patterns unknowable. The truth behind sirens is not fantasy, but the natural music of the ocean, a sound that feels alive with intelligence and longing, ensuring that the myth of sirens will always remain, not only as legend, but as living proof that voices still sing beneath the waves, waiting for those who will listen. The abyssal dragon stories from countless cultures describe dragons of the deep, scaled beasts with wings like fins and breath. Like storms, creatures said to slumber in underwater caverns and rise when angered. Yet within the ocean, there are animals that inspired these stories, giant oarfish that stretch longer than men can measure, their silver bodies crowned with red fins rising from the abyss like dragons from myth. To those who saw them, these beings could only be explained as monsters, dragons hidden beneath the sea, and even today their sudden appearance inspires awe and fear. Myths of abyssal dragons endure because their image fits perfectly with the power of the sea. Untamable, ancient, and filled with creatures that defy belief. Whether in the mind of a storyteller or the eyes of a fisherman who glimpsed a shining serpent rising from blackness, the dragons of the deep are real, and their legend swims with them in every shadow of the ocean, the sea. Wraiths in the oldest tales, the sea was said to house wraiths, ghostly beings of water and mist that drifted over the waves at night, their presence an omen of disaster, their touch cold as death. These stories reflect the way fog rolls across the ocean and the strange forms that appear within it, figures that vanish the moment they are approached. To frighten sailors, these illusions were living wraiths, spirits of the drowned come to claim more lives. Today science speaks of weather and reflection, but cannot erase the fear they inspire. Myths of sea wraiths endure because every foggy night on the water still feels haunted. The ocean itself creating ghosts from nothing, and while no wraith may ever be touched, the feeling of being watched remains. A reminder that some myths live not in flesh but in the imagination of those who face the ocean's eerie silence. The cursed pearls among myths are stories of pearls, born not from oysters, but from curses, gems said to hold the souls of the drowned, shining with sorrow. Legends grew because divers who sought treasures in the deep often vanished, their absence explained through the wrath of spirits guarding pearls too sacred to take. Yet pearls are real treasures of the ocean, created through the slow miracle of life. Their shine mystical enough to inspire any legend. To ancient cultures, they seemed alive, glowing softly as though carrying whispers of another world. Myths of cursed pearls endure because the beauty of these treasures feels otherworldly, too perfect to belong to Earth, and the dangers of diving into the deep made the story of curses believable. Today, pearls remain symbols of beauty and mystery, proof that sometimes myths arise not from fear, but from awe, and that even simple wonders of the sea can become enchanted in the human mind. The ocean. Serpents. Among the most universal ocean myths are serpents, vast snake-like creatures that coil around ships and drag them beneath the waves, their scales shining, their eyes burning with cold fury. Yet today we know of real creatures that match their form. From giant eels hidden in trenches to the oarfish that rise like silver serpents from the abyss, to those who first saw them, these were monsters without question. Larger than life and beyond understanding, myths of ocean serpents endure because they are rooted in reality, in the shapes that move beneath the water. Elongated and powerful, glimpsed for only seconds, but never forgotten. Even now, sightings of massive serpentine creatures appear, whether mistaken whales, drifting nets, or something undiscovered. The image of serpents in the deep refuses to fade, because the ocean itself seems designed to hide such beings, and our fear ensures the legends remain alive. The watchers beneath legends often spoke of watchers beneath the waves, eyes that never blinked, beings that tracked every movement of ships and sailors. Unseen but always present. The feeling of being observed by something vast and intelligent haunted those who traveled the seas. And perhaps the truth lies in the whales, squids, and other giants who have always watched from below, their eyes massive and expressive, reflecting an awareness that feels human and alien at once. To those who met their gaze, the experience could only be described as supernatural. Myths of watchers endure because the feeling has not left us. Even today, when divers encounter the stare of a whale or the glow of a predator's eyes in the dark, it feels like meeting a guardian or a god. The watchers beneath are real, and their presence ensures the myth continues. A reminder that the ocean is never empty. It is always alive and always watching. The eternal storms in many myths, storms were not natural, but living beings, entities of rage that rose from the sea itself, punishing those who disrespected its power. Sailors told of waves that spoke, winds that screamed like voices, and lightning that seemed to take form. These myths have truth because storms at sea are unlike any on land. Their scale and violence beyond comprehension to those who faced them. It was impossible to see them as mere weather. They were alive, filled with wrath and will. Myths of eternal storms endure because even with modern technology, the sea still swallows ships, still conjures forces that cannot be tamed. And in the heart of such storms, the old myths return. For when the waves tower higher than mountains and thunder splits the sky, it is easy to believe the storm itself is a creature, and that the ocean has sent it to remind us of our place. Whispering mermaids, for centuries sailors have spoken of. Mermaids, beings half human and half fish, whose beauty was as dangerous as the ocean itself. Their voices sweet as lullabies, but deadly in their intent, luring men into the depths with promises of paradise. Yet when we look closer at reality, we find seals, dolphins, and manatees swimming gracefully near coasts, their movements mistaken by weary eyes for women of the sea. But myths endured because their stories spoke to loneliness and longing on endless voyages. To hear a song in the night was to believe something beyond human was reaching out. Today, divers still report hearing strange melodies echoing through the depths, sounds that seem too perfect to be random. Perhaps the mermaids were never just fantasy, but reflections of the music that life itself makes underwater, reminding us that beauty and danger live side by side in the ocean's heart. Leviathan of the deep. The Leviathan is described as a beast of unimaginable size, a serpent or whale-like titan that could overturn ships with a flick of its tail. Feared as a monster and revered as a god, its myth stretches from biblical texts to seafaring folklore. Yet in reality, giant whales and colossal squids inspired such stories, their bulk and power beyond anything men had ever seen. To encounter such a creature in fragile wooden ships was to meet an unstoppable force. Myths of Leviathan endure because the ocean itself feels like a single vast beast, its storms like breaths, its waves like muscles, its creatures like extensions of a living god. And even now, as submarines venture deeper, we discover animals of size and power that echo the legends, proof that Leviathan may not just be myth, but a reflection of the deep's reality, a symbol of nature's scale that humans cannot tame. The lantern beasts among myths are tales of glowing beasts that wandered the ocean floor, carrying their own lights, like lanterns, to guide or deceive, their eyes and bodies burning with eerie fire. In truth, these creatures exist today as anglerfish, dragonfish, and other bioluminescent predators whose light draws prey into jaws of terror. To early sailors and divers, these were monsters conjured from nightmares, lights that appeared from nowhere in darkness, moving with intent and hunger. Myths of lantern beasts endure because even now their glow feels supernatural, an otherworldly signal in eternal night. And as technology reveals more glowing creatures than ever, the stories of living lanterns continue to feel true. For the abyss is not empty, but alive with stars that swim, predators disguised as miracles, and lights that guide not to safety, but to doom, making lantern beasts one of the ocean's most chilling realities. The coral spirits legends tell of spirits who live within coral reefs, protectors of underwater kingdoms, their forms delicate and colorful like the reefs themselves. Some believed they blessed fishermen who respected the sea and cursed those who took too much. Myths like these arose from the beauty of coral itself. Structures so alive and vibrant, they seemed like palaces built by invisible hands. To ancient people, they were not rocks, but living beings, and the creatures that darted among them became their guardians. Today we know corals are indeed living colonies, fragile ecosystems that support thousands of species. But the myths of coral spirits remain because reefs still feel enchanted, shimmering with light, sound, and color that defies the imagination. To swim among them is to feel watched and welcomed, as though entering a sacred temple, ensuring the myth of coral spirits continues to thrive in both folklore and in the awe of modern explorers. Kraken's legacy. The Kraken remains one of the most famous ocean monsters, a cephalopod so large it could drag entire ships beneath the waves with its tentacles. Feared across Scandinavia and beyond, to encounter such a beast was to meet certain death. Yet, reality holds truth in giant squids and colossal squids, animals with tentacles stretching over 40 feet, capable of wrapping around prey and leaving scars even on whales. Sailors who glimpsed these beings in storms or washed ashore could only imagine them as monsters of impossible size. Myths of the Kraken endure because they symbolize the terror of the unknown. The idea that the sea itself could rise up and destroy. Even today, when images of giant squids surface, the old stories are reborn, proof that myth and reality are closer than believed, and that somewhere in the deep, the legacy of the Kraken still stirs in shadow. The seahorses of legend, not the tiny seahorses we know today, but great creatures described as half horse and half fish, carrying gods, heroes, or spirits across the waves. These seahorses galloped beneath the foam, their manes made of water, their bodies shining like silver. Myths such as these may have been inspired by breaching dolphins and fast-moving sea creatures whose leaps resembled horses riding waves. To those who watched, they were not animals, but magical steeds, carriers of messages between worlds. Myths of seahorses endure because their image blends freedom and power, creatures both wild and loyal, and the ocean itself moves like galloping hooves when storms break. Today, though, no giant seahorses exist. The metaphor remains alive. For when dolphins leap or waves crash in thunder, it still feels like the gallop of ancient steeds, echoes of legends that never left the water. the abyssal sirens beyond the shallow waters, where sailors imagined mermaids. There are tales of deeper sirens, darker and more terrifying, beings with monstrous forms, teeth like daggers, and voices that echoed like screams. They were said to live where no light reached, calling upward to lure men into madness. Their myths are explained today through the strange calls of deep-sea fish and whales, sounds distorted into haunting cries, and the discovery of predatory fish with terrifying jaws. Yet myths of abyssal sirens endure because the concept of something beautiful and horrifying at once still holds power. And even now, recordings from the deep carry noises we cannot identify, strange wails that suggest life we do not yet understand, ensuring the abyssal sirens remain both myth and possibility, voices of the deep that may never fall silent. The stone giants. Some cultures told of stone giants who walked beneath the waves, their bodies like moving cliffs, their footsteps shaking the sea floor, protectors or destroyers depending on the tale. These myths may have been inspired by volcanic activity, shifting tectonic plates, and the sudden rise of massive rocks from the ocean, events that made it seem as though beings of stone were alive. Yet the myths endure because the idea of giants sleeping in the deep resonates with the mystery of the earth itself, creatures as old as time, awakened only when balance is broken. Today, when we see massive rock formations shaped by water, it is easy to imagine them as petrified titans, statues left by gods or guardians waiting to rise. And so the stone giants remain alive in legends, shadows of a truth written in the movements of the planet itself. The drowned gods in many mythologies, the ocean was the grave of gods, beings who had fallen from the heavens and now ruled beneath the waves, their bodies vast, their voices carried in storms, their anger in tsunamis. Sailors who encountered sudden disasters believed they had angered these drowned deities, and in truth, the violence of the sea does feel divine, forces so beyond human power they might as well belong to gods. Today, these myths endure not because we believe in gods beneath the water, but because the ocean still feels sacred, a place of punishment and blessing, where life began and where all things return. The drowned gods remain not just stories, but symbols of the sea's eternal power, a reminder that even when forgotten, the ocean itself remains the most divine presence of all, vast, eternal, and untouchable. The shadow Leviathan stories persist of massive shapes, moving just out of sight, darker than the water, vaster than ships, leaving wakes that vanish without a trace. These shadow Leviathans were said to be the true rulers of the deep, hidden titans that never revealed themselves fully. Today, we may explain such tales as pods of whales, unknown schools of fish, or optical illusions. Yet the mystery endures because the ocean is still unexplored. Its trenches, deeper than our tallest mountains, are high, vast enough to hide creatures beyond imagination. Myths of shadow Leviathans endure because every glimpse of a massive shadow in sonar, or every ripple on calm seas, reminds us that something could still be there, watching, waiting, and moving silently in the endless dark. Proof that not all myths fade, and some may yet rise to the surface one day. The phantom whales legends speak of phantom whales, ghostly leviathans that appear only at night, their bodies shimmering like mist, and their songs carrying over endless distances, believed to be omens of disaster or messages from the drowned. Sailors swore they saw their pale shapes gliding just below the surface, vanishing when approached. In truth, these stories likely arose from encounters with albino whales or rare light reflections on the ocean. Yet the myths endure because whale songs themselves are haunting, deep and echoing across miles, making listeners feel they are being spoken to by spirits. And when one imagines vast white forms moving silently through darkness, it is easy to see why the stories of phantom whales lived on. For in the ocean, even real creatures can appear like ghosts, living myths that carry the weight of mystery. The serpents of the trenches sailors have long told of serpents stretching for hundreds of feet, bodies twisting like rivers of muscle, eyes glowing in the abyss, and mouths capable of swallowing boats whole. Myths of these trench serpents spread across cultures from Norway to Japan, and in truth, giant oarfish, with their ribbon-like bodies reaching 30 feet, may have inspired such tales. For to glimpse one rising from the deep was to see a dragon, alive, moving as though the sea itself had taken shape. Today, these creatures remain rare and mysterious, yet every time one is found floating at the surface or washed ashore, the old myths return, proof that trench serpents may still lurk in the darkest depths, guardians of secrets too vast for human eyes, reminding us that the ocean can still hide dragons in plain sight. The watchers beneath stories tell of beings who never surface, yet are always watching. Eyes larger than lanterns, glowing from the deep, staring upward at passing ships. Legends called them the Watchers Beneath, spirits or beasts who studied humanity from the shadows, never interfering, only observing. Their myths may have been born from encounters with deep-sea creatures like the giant squid, whose eyes are the largest in the animal kingdom, glowing eerily when caught in the right light. To see such a gaze would feel like meeting an intelligence, both alien and ancient. And so the myths of the Watchers endure, not as predators, but as witnesses, guardians of mysteries humans are not ready to learn. Eyes in the dark that remind us we are never alone when we travel the ocean's endless blue. The singing currents, many sailors believed that the ocean itself could sing. Voices carried on the currents, sounding like choirs rising from the deep. Legends claimed these were the spirits of drowned sailors or sea goddesses calling their children home. But science reveals strange underwater acoustics, currents moving through caves and trenches, creating haunting echoes, sometimes amplified by the cries of whales or shifting stones. Yet myths of singing currents endure because sound is the ocean's language. And when heard in stillness, these voices feel alive, as though the sea itself is mourning or celebrating. Today, recordings still capture eerie tones scientists cannot always explain, leaving room for the ancient myths to breathe. For when the ocean sings, it does so like no other place on Earth, and perhaps that music is the closest we come to hearing its soul. The glass serpents dailies describe serpents with bodies as clear as glass, invisible in daylight, shimmering only when struck by moonlight or firelight. To see one was to meet a spirit of the sea, uncatchable and immortal. In truth, such myths may have been inspired by transparent creatures of the deep, like glass eels, jellyfish, and salps, whose bodies are so clear they vanish in the water. And to ancient sailors, their sudden appearance seemed magical. Yet myths of glass serpents endure because the idea of invisible predators remains terrifying creatures that move unseen until they choose to reveal themselves. And in the black waters of the deep ocean, filled with transparent animals that drift like ghosts, the myth feels alive even now, a reminder that invisibility is no fantasy but a reality of nature's design, making glass serpents both legend and truth. The eternal turtles. Some myths speak of turtles so vast they carried entire islands on their backs, their shells mistaken for land by sailors who built fires and camps only to watch the ground beneath them move and sink. Cultures across Asia and the Pacific tell of world turtles, beings that supported the earth itself, yet giant sea turtles do exist, ancient mariners that live longer than centuries, and to those who first saw them, they must have seemed immortal. Myths of eternal turtles endure because their very existence feels mythic. Creatures born before human memory, crossing oceans with calm and wisdom, their shells like continents, their presence like legends brought to life. And even today, the sight of a massive turtle swimming slowly through endless seas reminds us of ancient myths, guardians of time who still swim in silence beneath the waves. The luminous spirits legends tell of glowing spirits rising from the ocean at night, floating orbs of light drifting across the water, leading ships astray or blessing them with safe passage, called by many names across cultures. These luminous beings may have been inspired by bioluminescent plankton, glowing waves, or rare fireballs of St. Elmo's fire that danced on masts during storms. Yet myths endure because the sight is undeniably magical. To see a black sea suddenly turn into a glowing carpet of blue fire feels like stepping into another world. And in those moments, it is easy to believe spirits walk with us, guiding, warning, or playing. Today we know the science, yet the enchantment remains. For when luminous lights appear, the ocean itself feels alive, whispering that even the smallest creatures can create legends written in waves of light. The abyssal behemoths. Some myths spoke of creatures so vast they lived in the trenches where no light touched, their bodies so massive they were mistaken for mountains moving only once in centuries, their shifts causing earthquakes and tsunamis. These abyssal behemoths were feared as sleeping gods of the deep, and in truth, tectonic movements, volcanic eruptions, and unknown seismic events may have inspired such tales. Yet the myths endure because the ocean floor remains largely unexplored, and the idea of something alive beneath us, as large as continents, is not impossible to imagine. For when we see colossal creatures already proven to exist, it is easy to believe larger ones hide below. Myths of abyssal behemoths endure as echoes of human awe, reminding us that even today, the Earth's deepest places may conceal life too great for us to comprehend. The wave riders' stories across islands speak of mysterious beings who rode the tops of waves, humanoid or animal-like, laughing as they skimmed across storms, sometimes saving sailors, sometimes dragging them down. These wave riders were believed to be spirits of the ocean, children of gods, or lost souls who merged with the sea. Their myths may have arisen from sudden sightings of dolphins, surfing fish, or even optical illusions created by rolling waves. But their legends endure because the image is so powerful. Beings who move with the freedom of the water, who master chaos with grace. Today, surfers chase waves, but the myth of riders older than humans persists. For when the sea is wild and shapes leap across the foam, the mind still whispers of spirits, of companions who have ridden waves since the beginning of time. The whispering skies of the sea. Some myths the ocean was believed to hold its own sky beneath. Constellations formed by glowing creatures who shared secrets of the future. Sailors told of dreams, where voices from below guided their journeys. And in truth, the bioluminescence of deep-sea creatures creates vast glowing patterns in the dark. Shapes that seem alive and intentional, yet myths endure because they touch something deeper. The belief that the ocean speaks, that its lights are messages written in the language of eternity. Today, explorers still marvel at shimmering displays in the depths, patterns that feel too organized to be chance, ensuring the myths remain. For the sea holds both a sky above and a sky below, and perhaps both are speaking if we dare to listen. The sea wraiths' legends tell of sea wraiths, shadowy beings that rise from the waves in stormy nights, their forms shifting between mist and flesh, haunting sailors with whispers that drive them mad. Some believed they were spirits of those lost at sea, cursed to wander forever, while others thought they were demons of the deep feeding on fear. Yet, in truth, many of these tales may have been born from illusions caused by fog, lightning, and crashing waves that seemed to form faces and figures. But the myths remain alive, because the ocean in darkness is a place where imagination thrives. And when a storm howls and the sea screams back, it is easy to believe ghostly figures are moving across the water, spirits walking where no man should, warning that the sea is not ours but theirs. The shadow leviathans. Some stories speak of leviathans, made entirely of shadow. Creatures so vast they blocked out starlight when they rose, leaving only a dark outline against the horizon, pulling them into silent blackness, though perhaps these tales arose from massive whales breaching at night or volcanic smoke covering the sea. The legends endure because the fear of being consumed by the unknown is as old as seafaring itself. And to those who crossed uncharted waters, the sight of a black wall in the night could only mean a leviathan of shadows had risen, a beast older than the world, waiting for the foolish who dared to sail too far. The coral spirits myths tell of coral reefs alive with spirits, each branch holding the soul of a drowned sailor, glowing faintly under moonlight and whispering when touched. Islanders believed to harm the coral was to invite curses from the ocean, for the spirits would rise in anger, and in truth, coral reefs do sound alive, filled with the crackling and buzzing of tiny creatures, glowing with mysterious light at night, making it easy to believe in spirits dwelling within. The myths endure because reefs are both beautiful and dangerous, protecting islands while wrecking ships, and so the idea of coral spirits remains, guardians of the ocean's gardens, watching silently as humans trespass among their living temples. The abyssal sirens of shallow waters. Myths speak of abyssal sirens that sing from the trenches, voices so deep they can only be felt as vibrations in the bones. not heard by ears. They do not lure sailors to rocks, but to madness, filling minds with dreams of endless descent. These myths may come from encounters with strange low-frequency sounds recorded in the ocean, such as the bloop and other unexplained noises that travel for hundreds of miles. Yet the idea of beings singing from the darkness is too haunting to dismiss. For sound is the true language of the deep, and the thought that something enormous and unseen is calling still terrifies and fascinates, making abyssal sirens myths that breathe every time the ocean speaks in voices we cannot explain. The silver-finned messengers, some legends, schools of silverfish, were not just animals but messengers of the sea gods, appearing suddenly to deliver omens, their scales flashing like written words across the surface, guiding or warning sailors of storms. While skeptics say these tales arose from natural migrations of sardines or anchovies that move in unison like living rivers of silver. Yet myths persist because the sight is so extraordinary. Thousands of fish gliding together as if commanded by a higher power, a living message written across water. And for ancient sailors who saw this only once in a lifetime, it was no mere coincidence, but a divine encounter with messengers who swam between worlds. The sea wolves stemming the northern seas. Stories tell of sea wolves, creatures with the heads of wolves and bodies built to swim, hunting in packs and dragging prey from shores, their howls echoing over water like wind itself. In reality, perhaps these myths were born from sightings of orcas, predators that hunt in groups and cry out with eerie voices. But to ancient cultures, they were wolves of the ocean, their strength and cunning too much like those on land. And so the legends grew of sea wolves who prowled the coasts, neither beast nor fish, but something in between, a mythic reminder that predators rule every realm. The Lantern Keepers legends whisper of beings called Lantern Keepers, massive fish that carried glowing orbs hanging from their heads. Sailors unfamiliar with such creatures, the sight of a living lantern swimming in the abyss was nothing less than divine or demonic. And so myths spread of great keepers who carried light into the blackness, guardians of safe passage or tricksters of doom, their lamps forever burning where no sun has ever shone. The iron-scaled beasts sailors told of monsters covered in scales as hard as iron, immune to harpoons, their backs like armor forged by gods. Ships crashed against them, thinking they were islands, only to realize, too late, the beast was alive, with creatures already wearing bone, shell, or metal-like skin. The leap to iron-scaled giants is not far. Legends that remind us some beings may yet exist beyond our weapons, forever untouchable by humankind. The murmuring depths in old tales, sailors spoke of seas that murmured, voices rising from beneath their ships, sometimes sounding like prayers, sometimes curses. No crew dared to answer, fearing the ocean itself was speaking. Science today explains these sounds as shifting sand, volcanic activity, or whale calls. But to those at sea, with nothing but stars above and water below, the voices were proof of unseen beings living in the abyss, murmuring always, as if conversing, just out of reach. And so myths of murmuring depths persist, reminding us that the ocean is not silent, but alive, with countless voices still unheard. The moonlit guardians, many islanders told of beings who rose only under the full moon, guardians shaped like men, and beasts made of silver water, their bodies dissolving when dawn came, perhaps inspired by rare, glowing creatures seen at night, or illusions created by moonlight on waves. But the legends live on, because the ocean feels different under moonlight, alive and enchanted. And in that glow, it is easy to believe guardians rise, watching over their realm with silent judgment, reminding humans that the sea belongs to no one but itself. The bonefin. Shadow sailors told of monstrous fish with skeleton-like fins sharp as blades, cutting through water like scythes of death, their bodies never fully visible except for the glimmer of bone under moonlight. They were said to circle wrecks and wait for the dying, dragging souls into the abyss, perhaps inspired by sightings of deep-sea fish with translucent flesh that revealed skeletal frames beneath. Myths of bone-fin shadows endure because they blend death and life. Predators that look like ghosts of their own skeletons, haunting sailors with the fear that the sea itself breeds creatures made of bone and sorrow. And even today, when rare, translucent fish are caught, their exposed ribs gleaming, one can imagine why old sailors swore the sea birthed shadowy skeletons that swim silently and endlessly. The Maw of Darkness legends spoke of a living pit in the sea, a mouth without a body, vast enough to swallow ships whole, invisible until it opened beneath a vessel, drawing it down like a whirlpool, but lined with fangs that tore wood apart. Such myths may have been born from encounters with giant gulper, eels, deep-sea fish with expandable jaws that seem to become mouths larger than their own bodies. Yet, stories of the Maw endure because fear of sudden disappearance is real. Many ships were lost without explanation, and what better answer than a hungry abyss that waits unseen? The Maw became a living myth, an endless hunger given shape, a reminder that beneath calm waters, a predator could exist that is not a creature, but a mouth, a nightmare that feeds on everything above it. The mirror beasts. Some sailors claimed to see creatures that looked exactly like themselves, staring back from the waves, copies that rose from the water to mock their movements. Some believed these mirror beasts were spirits trying to lure men into the sea. Others thought they were curses sent by gods. In truth, such visions may have been illusions caused by moonlit reflections or bioluminescent creatures shaping human-like outlines on the surface. But myths of mirror beasts endured because they spoke to a primal fear, meeting oneself in a place of death, facing a reflection alive and separate, the ocean turning into a living mirror of souls. And even today, with stories of humanoid shapes seen in glowing waters, myths of doppelganger, creatures of the sea, still whisper that the ocean remembers every face that dares look into it. The sirens of ice-cold seas held tales of sirens, not of warm beauty, but of icy horror. Pale beings with frozen skin and crystal hair, who sang not to lure men with love, but to freeze their hearts. Their voices cold winds that paralyzed sailors until they fell into the freezing sea. These legends may have been born from sudden freezing, storms, and deadly hypothermia. Yet the myths endure because the image of cold spirits with haunting songs is unforgettable. The ocean of the poles holds vast mysteries beneath the ice, and the thought of sirens shaped by frost feels possible. For many have reported voices carried across glaciers and empty seas, and when death is near in frozen waters, every sound feels alive. Every echo could be the song of icy sirens who rule the silence of frozen waves. The lantern. Leviathan steles speak of leviathans covered in glowing lanterns, massive bodies drifting through the dark like floating cities of light. Sailors swore these beings lured ships toward them until they struck unseen reefs or vanished into storms, perhaps inspired by sightings of bioluminescent squid or even glowing blooms of plankton moving in waves. Yet the myth of lantern leviathans endures because the idea of a giant beast covered in living lights is as magical as it is terrifying. A moving constellation hidden in the ocean, a living lighthouse that offers no safety but instead leads men to ruin. And when deep explorers capture footage of strange lights flickering in patterns far below, one cannot help but wonder if perhaps the myths were never fiction, only glimpses of the truth we still fear to face. The endless swarms-old legends spoke not of one beast but of millions, swarms of tiny glowing creatures that moved as a single mind, forming shapes of monsters, ships, or human faces upon the sea. Terrifying sailors who believed they were alive and watching. These myths likely arose from encounters with plankton blooms and bioluminescent swarms. Yet the legends endured because the sight was overwhelming. An entire sea glowing with patterns, as though a god were painting upon the waves. Sailors whispered that to fall into such waters was to lose yourself forever, absorbed by the swarm until you became part of its endless body. Myths of endless swarms remind us that sometimes the sea itself is the creature, countless lives bound together into one mind, one light, one unending presence of mystery. The coral giant story spread of living coral creatures that rose like mountains, their bodies hardened into reefs, yet still alive, shifting slowly across centuries, trapping ships not by chance, but by design. These coral giants were thought to be guardians of drowned cities, builders of their own kingdoms beneath the sea. And while coral is real, vast enough to shape worlds, the myths endure because coral can appear alive even when frozen in silence. Creatures turning stone into flesh and flesh into stone. To sailors, seeing reefs suddenly emerge from nowhere. The only explanation was that they were alive, growing giants waiting beneath. And so myths of coral titans became warnings and wonders, guardians of life and death, proof that even the very architecture of the sea might itself be alive. The dream. Eels fishermen told of eels that entered men's dreams, swimming into their minds when they slept on deck, whispering visions of storms or treasures, sometimes guiding them safely, sometimes driving them to madness. The dream eels were said to be thin as shadows, invisible by day, but alive in the realm of sleep, perhaps inspired by real electric eels and their strange pulses of energy. Sailors imagined these shocks as psychic waves, intrusions of the mind. The myths endure because sleep on the sea is dangerous and filled with strange sounds, and dreams often bleed into reality, making men believe something has entered their minds. So the dream eels remain alive in legend as spirits of thought, as if the ocean itself uses creatures to speak inside the human mind. The living fog legends describe fog that was alive, not weather, but a creature that rolled across the sea, swallowing ships whole, its body endless mist that whispered with voices of the lost. Some swore it could change shape into hands or faces reaching from the haze. These myths may have been born from natural fog banks, combined with the terror of losing sight in dangerous waters. Yet the image of a living fog persists because it feels true. The ocean often becomes a blank void of gray that seems to breathe and move. As though alive, myths of living fog endure because the unknown itself is a predator, and sailors who entered never returned, convincing many that the fog was not cloud but creature, a silent hunter that drifts eternally, feeding on those who dare to enter its endless body. The spiral beasts' stories tell of creatures shaped like living whirlpools, beasts with spiral bodies that twisted like galaxies, sucking ships down, not through water, but through their own movement. A living storm given flesh. Some thought they were guardians of the ocean's heart, others that they were punishments sent by gods. Such myths may have been inspired by whirlpools and maelstrom. Yet, the idea of living spiral beasts endured because storms themselves feel alive, chaotic, and intentional. To imagine one with a body hidden beneath the waves makes sense in the mythology of sailors. And even today, as whirlpools still drag ships and boats into the deep, it is tempting to wonder if perhaps there is more than water spinning below, perhaps an ancient beast turning, waiting, breathing in spirals across eternity. The eternal Kraken. Among all ocean myths, none stands taller than the Kraken, the colossal beast said to dwell in the deepest waters, with arms so vast they could encircle entire ships and drag them into a watery grave. Sailors of every age whispered of its presence, and entire coastlines feared the day it rose. Some described it as a squid, others as an octopus, but all agreed its power was unstoppable. Storms and whirlpools were said to be the beating of its body beneath the surface. Entire fleets disappeared, and no explanation satisfied other than the grip of this monster. Yet as centuries passed, proof began to appear when massive squids were discovered floating lifeless on beaches or entangled in nets. Their eyes the size of shields, their bodies longer than houses. Science confirmed they exist, but only in glimpses, for the living Kraken of the abyss has never been fully seen, and perhaps never will, because it belongs to the shadow world of the ocean, a place humans cannot endure. And so the legend survives, because the truth is only partly revealed. And what little is revealed is terrifying enough to prove that myths are often born of reality, stretched by fear and wonder until they live as eternal monsters in the minds of mankind. The phantom whales' tales of phantom whales stretch back across generations, described as ghostly giants that glowed faintly in the dark, moving without sound across the horizon, their bodies sometimes half-transparent as though made of mist and bone. Sailors swore they could see stars through their forms as they passed, believing them to be spirits of whales long dead, still migrating eternally through oceans. Science today tells us of bioluminescent plankton, fog illusions, and echoes of whale songs traveling for thousands of miles. Yet these explanations do not erase the feeling of standing at sea at night and hearing a low, mournful call beneath the waves, so deep it rattles your bones, and seeing a shifting outline on the horizon that seems too large to be real. Phantom whales persist as myths because the ocean itself is a graveyard of giants, filled with bones that sink to the bottom and become cities for strange creatures. So why would it not also hold the spirits of those same giants, still wandering in endless migration, unseen by most, but unforgettable to those who encounter them once and carry the story forever, forever? The abyssal dragons. In many cultures across the world, the sea was home to dragons, beings older than time itself, shaped by waves and storms, some spitting fire, others breathing water, but all enormous and unstoppable. Sailors feared the shape of twisting serpents rising out of the ocean, with scales that shimmered like polished stone, wings that could blot out the sun, or bodies so long they coiled across the horizon. Many of these tales likely began with sightings of giant oarfish, sea snakes, or even whales breaching in strange ways. But the persistence of dragon myths speaks to something deeper. For humans have always looked at the unknown and filled it with monsters, and the ocean is the largest unknown of all. Even today, with satellites above us, we know more of space than we know of the trenches beneath the sea. And so the dragon of the abyss remains alive, breathing not in fire, but in the fears and imaginations of those who know the ocean will always be home to beings larger, older, and more powerful than we dare to dream. The singing serpent stories of singing serpents describe creatures that rise from the waves, not to kill, but to call, their voices weaving through the air like the sound of flutes or choirs, so beautiful that sailors abandoned their posts to follow, only to vanish forever. Some said these beings were kin to mermaids. Others swore they were serpents with golden scales and eyes that burned like coals. Yet the common thread was always the sound. Music carried across the sea, impossible to resist. Today we know that whales and dolphins sing in tones that travel for miles, creating echoes that sound unearthly to human ears. But in the silence of the open sea, these sounds transform into living songs of creatures beyond sight. And it is easy to see why a lonely sailor, hearing voices at night, would believe serpents were calling from the abyss. The myth lives on because music is mysterious. It touches the soul in ways words cannot. And the idea that the sea itself sings through its creatures is not just believable, it is true. And so the serpent song endures, half myth, half nature, fully haunting. The drowned gods. Many ancient seafarers told of drowned gods sleeping beneath the ocean floor, their massive bodies becoming mountains and their movements causing earthquakes and tsunamis. Whenever the sea grew violent, it was believed that these beings were stirring from their slumber, trying to rise again to the surface. Cultures from Greece to Polynesia carried variations of this myth of titans, gods, or fallen angels imprisoned beneath the waves, waiting to awaken and reclaim the world. And though today we explain earthquakes with tectonic plates and tsunamis with science, the power of the story still lingers because the scale of destruction matches the scale of the myth. The ocean can rise without warning and erase entire cities. So is it any wonder people once believed only gods could wield such power? The drowned gods remain in myth as reminders of human fragility and the fear that beneath our fragile earth, something vast and divine still shifts and turns in restless dreams. The mirror beast sailors once feared the appearance of mirror beasts, creatures that looked exactly like the ship and crew themselves, rising from the sea as ghostly doubles, predicting disaster. The legends claimed that to see your own reflection swimming alongside meant the voyage would end in ruin. Perhaps these myths came from mirages, reflections of ships distorted on waves, or the strange way water can cast ghostly images at night. Yet the myth persists because it speaks to something deeper. The fear of confronting your own shadow, of seeing yourself in the abyss and realizing you are just as fragile as any other creature in the sea. The mirror beast was never just a monster, but a warning, a reminder that the ocean reveals truths you may not want to face, and that sometimes the scariest thing waiting in the water is not a beast but yourself. The Abyss Watchers legends speak of the Abyss Watchers, beings with glowing eyes that peer up from the trenches, watching ships pass above, never attacking, never surfacing, only staring. Countless sailors swore they saw lights below them at night, 2 or 4 or dozens, hovering just out of reach. And while bioluminescent fish and squid can explain some of these lights, the myth persists because the feeling of being watched in the middle of endless ocean is impossible to shake. The Abyss Watchers embody that fear, the belief that something vast and unseen is aware of you, following you, and choosing not to act, which is perhaps more terrifying than attack, for it suggests intelligence in the deep, patient, and ancient, waiting for reasons we cannot guess. Their myth remains alive in every strange light seen beneath the waves, and in every silent stare we imagine rising from the trenches. The Blackfin demons among fishermen there were whispers of Blackfin demons, monstrous fish with fins like wings that sliced through the water faster than any predator, leaving trails of foam and pulling men into the depths with jagged teeth. Many claimed they were punishments sent by the ocean gods for greed. Others swore they were simply sharks with unnatural speed and strength. Yet the myth remains because encounters with large predatory fish in the open sea are unforgettable. And when shadows move beneath the boat faster than the eye can follow it, is easy to believe demons are circling. Blackfins became the embodiment of fear itself, unseen predators moving in silence, striking with fury, reminders that in the ocean humans are never the hunters, always the hunted. And the myth keeps this truth alive with every story told on restless nights by those who still fish where danger waits unseen. The eternal jelly legends tell of a jellyfish the size of islands, transparent and endless, its tentacles stretching for miles, glowing faintly like pale moons under the water. Sailors who encountered it said their ships drifted for days across its body without reaching the edge. Some thought it was the spirit of the ocean itself. Others, a living trap meant to hold mankind forever. Today we know of giant siphonophores and jellyfish larger than anything imagined, some stretching longer than blue whales, yet none so vast as the mythical eternal jelly. Still, the myth endures because jellyfish themselves seem otherworldly, shapeless and timeless, with no brain, no bones, no blood, yet they survive for millions of years. The eternal jelly becomes not just a monster, but a symbol of eternity, a living ghost of the sea, reminding us that the ocean's oldest creatures are the strangest, and they may still hold secrets beyond what we can grasp. The Sea of Faces, one of the strangest myths, tells of seas filled with faces, countless human-like forms rising from the waves, whispering, watching, some with eyes closed, some weeping, others laughing. and to sail into such waters was said to bring madness or death. Explanations today might include bioluminescent plankton forming shapes or hallucinations born of exhaustion and hunger. But the myth is powerful because the sea itself is like a mirror reflecting human fears back at us. To imagine it filled with faces is to imagine the ocean holding the souls of the countless who drowned. A restless crowd watching from below, waiting for more. And so the Sea of Faces myth persists, chilling and unforgettable. A reminder that every wave could be the hand of someone lost. Every reflection, another soul pulled into the ocean's eternal memory. The Leviathan's awakening. For centuries, seafarers feared the coming of the Leviathan, a beast described in scriptures and stories as large as a continent, with scales harder than iron and eyes that burned like suns beneath the waves. Many claimed it lay sleeping in the deepest trenches, only to rise when the world reached its end, swallowing entire navies in its maw, creating storms with a flick of its tail and drowning nations beneath its shadow. Some cultures revered it as divine, a guardian of balance, while others saw it as the embodiment of chaos itself. But all agreed that its awakening would reshape the seas forever. Modern science finds no creature of such scale, yet we do know of colossal squid, blue whales, and sea quakes that feel like the stirring of giants. So the Leviathan lives on because the ocean hides more than it reveals. And the idea that something vast beyond comprehension still rests unseen is too powerful to dismiss, for the deep ocean is large enough to cradle myths and give them the breath of truth. The lantern spirits legends tell of lantern spirits rising from the sea on foggy nights, glowing like floating flames above the waves, drifting silently toward ships and circling them like the wisps before vanishing into mist. Some sailors claimed these lights were lost souls trying to guide men to safety. Others swore they were tricksters luring ships onto rocks where they would shatter and sink. Today we know of bioluminescent creatures and rare natural gas ignitions. Yet the stories refuse to die because the sight of unexplained lights on a black sea chills the human mind. Lantern spirits symbolize mystery, death, and guidance all at once, and they remind sailors that in the great emptiness of the ocean, even the faintest light may either save you or destroy you, and no man can know which until it is too late. It is too late. The endless serpent was said to coil around the entire globe, a creature so vast that its head and tail never met, stretching across oceans unseen, shifting tides and stirring storms with its movements. Many believed earthquakes were caused by its restless stirring and tsunamis by the lash of its tail. Some cultures worshipped it as the foundation of the world itself, a being that held the seas in place, while others feared it would one day rise and devour the earth whole. Scientists today would call it a myth born of orphish sightings and natural disasters. But the scale of the serpent matches the scale of human fear, for the ocean truly does circle the planet, and to imagine it alive, coiled around us, is not far from imagining the very earth itself as fragile, balanced only by the patience of an unseen beast that could awaken at any moment. The silent Quirin, the darkest nights at sea, sailors spoke of hearing songs, not from whales or birds, but from the water itself, low harmonies that rose and fell like choirs of invisible voices, guiding or warning depending on the listener's fate. Some swore these sounds were sirens practicing their call. Others said they were drowned souls mourning in unison. Scientists now record unexplained ocean hums and low-frequency noises traveling hundreds of miles, but the myth of the silent choir remains, because sound in the open sea is unlike sound anywhere else. It surrounds you, seeps into you, and convinces the mind that someone or something is singing beneath the waves. And when human loneliness joins with nature's song, myth is born, and the ocean becomes not silent but alive with voices of the unknown, the coral giants. Some tales speak not of beasts that swim, but of giants that grow, colossal coral beings that rise from the seabed, their arms branching like reefs, their eyes hidden among stone and shells. Some sailors swore islands themselves were actually sleeping coral giants, shaking the seas. Others said these creatures would guard treasure, trapping ships in their roots forever. In truth, coral does grow for centuries, creating structures large enough to be mistaken for mountains. And the myth grows from this reality, because in the shifting light of the water, even rock seems alive. And if reefs are homes to countless creatures, who is to say they are not themselves creatures, slow and patient, waiting for a time when the sea needs them to rise and walk again? The abyssal fire stories tell of fire burning beneath the ocean, great plumes of flame that rose in black waters without smoke or ash, terrifying sailors who believed demons or gods were at war beneath the surface. In reality, we know of hydrothermal vents and volcanic eruptions under the sea, but to ancient eyes, it was fire where no fire should ever be, proof of a living abyss that defied natural law. The myth of abyssal fire survived because it blended wonder and fear, beauty and destruction, light in the most impossible darkness. And to this day, those who dive near volcanic vents cannot help but feel the same awe and terror as the sailors, who once whispered that the ocean itself was alive and angry, burning silently in its own heart. The bone ship's fishermen once told of ships made entirely of bone drifting silently across the fog, crewed by skeletons or ghosts, never making a sound, yet always moving against the tide. Some said they carried the souls of drowned sailors to the underworld. Others that they hunted the living to claim more bones for their haul. Sightings of wreckage, whale skeletons, or strange reflections on water may explain such visions. But the myth remains powerful, for the idea of a ship that is death itself captures the imagination, a reminder that the sea is both cradle and grave, and that every vessel may one day become part of the bone fleet, drifting forever between waves. The flood. Seraph strange myths spoke of angelic beings rising with storms, wings made of water and eyes glowing like lightning, descending in hurricanes to punish sailors for pride or hubris. Some described them as beautiful, others as terrifying, but all agreed they came with great floods, their voices like thunder, their touch like drowning. In truth, these stories may come from waterspouts and strange cloud shapes, yet the myth lingers because storms at sea are godlike in scale. They transform the ocean into something divine and terrible, and it is easy to believe such fury belongs to beings beyond us, seraphs of the flood, watching and judging mankind with every tempest unleashed. the shifting isle. Among sailors there were legends of shifting isles, islands that appeared solid and safe only to vanish when ships landed upon them, pulling entire crews into the sea. Some said these were living beings, enormous turtles or sea beasts whose backs rose like land. Others said they were cursed lands meant to lure sailors to doom. Science might point to floating pumice rafts, icebergs, or misread maps, but the myth lives on because islands are symbols of safety, and to imagine that very safety betrayed into death is the purest fear of sailors. The shifting isle remains in folklore as a cruel trick of the sea, a reminder that nothing in the ocean is what it seems. The eye of the deep. Many tales speak of a single great eye, larger than any ship, opening in the deepest waters to watch the world above. Those who saw it swore madness took hold of them, for no creature of that scale should exist. Some believed it was the eye of the ocean itself, others that it belonged to an ancient god or beast chained beneath the earth. Modern minds may dismiss it as imagination, illusions, or encounters with giant squid eyes. But the myth survives because to imagine the sea looking back at us is both terrifying and true. For the ocean holds more life than we can measure, and somewhere beneath, unseen, something vast may already be watching. Phantom mariners. Legends tell of phantom mariners who row ghostly boats across black waters under the light of a waning moon. Their oars make no splash, their lanterns glow with a pale green fire, and their faces are hidden by hoods of seaweed. They never speak, yet they follow ships for nights, appearing and vanishing with the mist. Some believed they were omens of death for anyone who looked upon them. Others thought they were the souls of lost fishermen condemned to row forever. Modern explanations point to tricks of fog, reflections of stars, or drifting debris mistaken for boats, but the fear remains because the sea is vast enough to hide phantoms, and silence upon the water can convince even the strongest mind that unseen sailors row just beyond the edge of vision, watching, waiting, following until your fate meets theirs in the endless abyss.